Welcome back, everybody, to the final panel, official panel, of the second day of Print 18. It's been a fabulous day here. It's been a fabulous day over at Ricoh, HP, and Canon. I could imagine you guys are right up front, busy, right? What about compared to yesterday? Same, more? Way better. Wow, interesting. You guys are all up in the front. This booth has been pretty packed. These panels have been well attended. I know that people are watching in Europe because they're texting me and I'm saying hello to some people, and they enjoyed our last panel a lot, actually, about the packaging. They were very interested in that. A topic that is so interesting, prevalent. Prevalent is a good word in discussions about buying new technology, using technology, helping brands be consistent, is color management. I could probably interject a lot of personal feelings about color management, but I'm going to refrain for the moment and start with Jan from Canon. Who are you? What do you do? And how does your company help print business grow through color management? Not how it works, but...
So my name is Jan Lemieux. I'm a national color advisor for Canon Solutions America. So what does that mean? Mostly it means I work with customers directly in training, workflow setup, and then I also work with our factories in communicating our customers' needs back to actual products that we deliver for customers to drive new business. So to your question, I think the biggest thing we try to do is education. I know that for me personally, education is very important because you might have a wonderful piece of equipment and you may have the best workflow, but if you're not educating both your internal stakeholders, your internal folks, and your customers on how to leverage it, how to get the most out of it, how to make the color right, what is intent, what are the desires, I think we fall short. So for us, I think the biggest thing to really drive that business is education. There was a customer here. We had a customer just came in to our booth earlier, was talking about how important, how they've actually taken our education and turned that into something they deliver internally to their internal stakeholders.
Well, thank God, right?
Yes.
Somebody's got to be dealing with this. Tim, HP. Who are you? What do you do there? And how is HP helping print business grow through color management?
Sure. So Tim Steffel, HP, I'm the product manager for the 5000 and 7000 series, as well as the 7250 and 50000 web press series. And basically what we look at color in the sense of is two basic things: color accuracy and color repeatability or consistency. Obviously the main thing is you've got your really wide range of customers. So you have everybody from the standard printer, 8-person mom and pop shop with a single press, to the customers that are photo related and they've got 30 or 40 presses and they're looking at doing photo calendars and photo products and photo books and everything else for the next 4 months. So at the end of the day, 90% of it is all about just maintaining an accurate and color reproducibility for them. But as well as what we've tried to do on the overall product is literally take the customer and the operator out of it. What we find too often is that, unfortunately, the operator of the press is the weakest link, and they end up causing color issues. So we're trying to, your eyes go wide, it's
because
actually
I can't
true.
believe the customer isn't the weakest link.
Yeah,
I've
well,
been a customer. I'm a weak link,
that's
my
actually
friend.
true too, but
yeah.
And we'll talk about a lot of that. But at the end of the day, we're trying to make it so that it's customer agnostic, so the press does what it's supposed to do every time repeatedly.
I'm not going to make it through this panel, I swear to God. Toby Salfeld.
Yes, hi,
From
I'm Toby.
Ricoh.
You want to do my introduction?
I said from Ricoh, that's all I said.
All right.
No, please, take it away.
All right, so I'm Toby Salfeld. I'm with Ricoh US, and I'm responsible for all Ricoh color management. I lead a team of 5 color consultants. We also have 35 color management certified people for G7 specifically, and over 100 CMP masters. That's the background. But at Ricoh, we take somewhat of a different approach. We take a lot of the same approach. I believe that education is absolutely the key aspect, but some people can only be educated to a certain point. Like you have some operators that you have to balance between what you pay them and what you expect from them. So at some point, you run into a scenario where you run out of funds to have all of the education catered to in-house.
Toby, can you lift the mic up a little?
So at Ricoh, we always look at the color management chain from a holistic perspective. So we want to go as high as possible. For instance, to a marketing executive, if they have to decide what colors to pick for the next season, we want to make sure that if they pick a Pantone 1655, they will not be able to print that on any CMYK printer, not just a Ricoh. It can be whatever offset, whatever inkjet, or whatever you have. If it's CMYK, you will not hit that color. It's impossible. So they need to know that. The designers need to work in a common color space. Pre-press needs to work with calibrated monitors. So every person, every part of that chain has equal weight. And of course, the printer at the end as well. But we feel that the printer is really only 20% of that whole equation. Everything has to work up to that. So what we do for our customers is, of course, education. We train them. And if we go beyond this area where, I don't know how to say it very nicely, but where they stop being trainable, at that point, we can take over color management on their behalf. And we do this on any device from any manufacturer. It can be offsets, white format, inkjet, it doesn't really matter. Something specific that we do for our customers to help them grow their business is Lunch and Learns. So it's an event hosted by our customer, powered by Ricoh. And we bring our experts in, the customer brings their customers in, and then we educate them on best practices for color management, file prep, those things, which then benefits our customer because then their whole workflow, the color management chain becomes more holistic.
Okay, guys. I'm going to try to be calm.
So it begins.
Remember, I'm from the advertising agency side of things. So, I mean, I don't understand half the technical stuff you start because at the end of the day, I have spent $1 zillion on a photo shoot, and I have spent $1 zillion on the photographer. And I have spent $1 zillion and weeks at a time retouching those photos. And you're telling me it boils down to an untrainable, press operator, why I can't get the color I want, which makes me a little nervous. But I want to take this up and bring it down. Where does color management start? And this is an open forum, so whoever wants to be brave enough to have this conversation with me. And I don't mean that, I'm just making a joke. Go ahead.
So I'll
Tim,
just try with the color management specific part of it. At the end of the day, what color management really should be for, not necessarily what it is, but what it should be for, is so that whatever you create, you get off your print device what you expect to get. So that, and I had a guy tell me this years and years ago. I've been with the Indigo family for 25 plus years now, and he was sending file to the RIP, and it would go through, and this is way back in the early days of our presses. We weren't getting the right result. And he sent it to the RIP, he got the wrong result, it didn't overprint the black. He sent it again, it did overprint the black that time. He kept sending this thing over and over again. And he said, I don't care if it does it right or if it does it wrong. I care that it does it the same way every time. Because if it's like a golf shot, if I hit the ball into the woods every time, if I slice and it always comes back to the right, at least I know where to aim. If I hit with the exact same slice every time, I can aim the same way every time and get the right result. That's what color management is supposed to do. So at the end of the day, the problem is you're not the only designer, the only photographer, the only whoever. There's 3,500 different designers, photographers, and creation people, and they're all using a different system. So the problem with color management really as a science is not that it doesn't work, is that it has too many components and parts and pieces and no way to really normalize to all one system. So at the end of the day, that's the problem with color management. There's a lot of other problems, and certifications and all those things are really crap unless they're really held to, but at the end of the day, that's the real problem with it.
I mean, also, color is so subjective. I know there's spectrometers. I understand that. But guess what? Print customers don't walk around with spectrometers. Print customers walk around saying, I had an idea of what I thought this was going to look like, and it doesn't look like that. And I thought it was going to. And I know there's a million reasons why it doesn't, but that's what we're trying to get to here. The industry seems really focused on this like brand dream. 20 packages on the shelf and they all the same orange, or whatever the green, whatever the color is you're all excited about these days. But the truth of the matter is that that's the highest end of it. The reality is that, and I've had this conversation with printers, color management ends regardless if it could be better or the color that was originally intended when the customer approves it. So it almost makes me say, why do we have this whole process? Why don't we just invest in press checks, lots of them, and we don't have to go through all of this craziness. But I know that you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so you make a really good point. Where does color management happen? Well, the reality is it happens everywhere, right? The first place it happens is in the mind of the person that's creating the piece.
Thank you.
The other place it happens is in the mind of the person who's printing the piece. And unless they do a Vulcan mind meld,
Right.
You're going to have a disconnect. And regardless of the software, the technology, the printing system, my father before me was a printer. It was kind of interesting because he was a stripper, which made career day at school interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
And one of the things that he says, it doesn't matter what you do on press. I learned on press, the first thing you do is you get gray balance. And this is way before G7. You get gray balance because you either print cast or you print gray. But I would sit there and I tried to make the press perfect, and we still wouldn't have problems. And it says, son, it doesn't matter how good the press is. If the customer wants purple kangaroos, the customer's going to get purple kangaroos
Right.
because that's what they want. So color management is a way to manage the system and make it consistent. And I think that's incredibly important. But now we have a consistent system being fed by inconsistent data, right? So you have output that's being created by multiple people from, to your point, everywhere, and everybody has a different idea of what they want it
Right.
to look like. So we can make the press consistent. We got to bring in the data consistently,
Right.
and that's usually a big challenge.
Well, I really do appreciate you entertaining my skepticism, but now let's get down to the brass tacks here. So we'll start with you, Toby. What are the products and services that you have that actually help printers manage color, however you're defining that? And thank you again.
So I mentioned some of that before. So of course, all sorts of G7 services, whether you like them or not.
I'm being good now. I got my thing out.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so all sorts of G7 services, a lot of education services. Our color assistance service is a great hit because it's essentially an annual subscription to a service where we take over your color management for you. So if you can't or don't want to color manage your printers, monitors, projectors, scanners, we have some contracts with companies where we calibrate their broadcasting monitors. We're trying to get a deal with a large NFL team to calibrate their Jumbotron. So when you think of Ricoh color management, it's really whatever can be color managed, whatever can be part of this holistic color management chain, we engage. And again, it doesn't matter which device it is, whatever type of device, whatever manufacturer it is, because we realize that ultimately, especially with commercial printers and implants or corporate environments as well, you always have a great mix of devices, even if you only talk about the printers. If you have an offset device and a digital and a white format, it's very likely that you have 3 different vendors there.
Right.
But we always try to get as high as possible in the color management chain. To the start, what Jen said, it's ultimately there's somebody who has some kind of vision, and the goal with color management would be to bring that vision to life, ultimately at the end of the chain. So color management then, to your perspective I somewhat disagree with.
Good.
Because,
I hope so, because you're developing products and services
Yes,
to fix it.
that's right.
And I'm basically saying it's an idea. Color is an idea, but maybe that's because that's the way my brain works. Like
Yeah.
I'm a see thing, not a. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't think of it. You're a scientist. You think of it. Yes, color management is a real thing, because if I look at it, it's this much cyan, this much blue, and it makes that color, and therefore I can manage that. But eyes and people have different ideas, and the results and the paper and there are things that take effect. Everybody wants to color manage to, like, say, a blue, but are you taking into fact that you're using a cream paper? Can it even possibly be that blue on that cream paper? I don't really hear those printers having those conversations. They just say, oh, that's the blue you wanted, because I can look at numbers and tell you it's that blue. So to me, there's something still missing in the scientific part of it and the artistic part, which is exactly where print meets, I think, in a lot of ways.
And actually, the way I see it is there are two aspects. You can use the printer as a design tool, or you can use the printer as a manufacturing tool.
Okay, very valid point.
In our industries, we look at the printer as a manufacturing tool. So we want consistency, we want repeatability, and the data that goes towards it, like I mentioned, the printer is only 20% of it. The data that goes to it needs to be consistent for our consistent printers, consistent and accurate printers, to
Right.
produce consistent and accurate output.
Right.
So if you start using your printer as an art tool, like you can do that. I mean, if you own the printer, you're not printing for anyone else,
You're
just for
sitting
yourself.
next to somebody whose printers are art tools, and it's a different situation. So actually, I want to hear from HP.
Yeah.
What are the products and services that you offer around color management?
Sure. So, and I want to bring out one thing. So and I'm telling on Deborah here a little bit, but right before the presentation, she put the microphone down and she said, let's just lay this out. I don't believe in this topic. Let me explain to you why we're all kind of in the same boat, and I hope we all basically agree with the same thing. By a quick show of hands, who thought the dress was blue and black? You guys know the thing I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right? By the same show of hands on the other side, who thought the dress was white and gold? Okay? That's the point. So the point of it is, we're
Toby, no.
specifically talking about color. And you have a population on one side that thought a specific set of colors was blue and black, and another group that thought it was white and gold. You could put the exact same piece in front of 10 different people, and 10 different people will give you 10 different responses.
Right.
And I don't care, by the way, if the pieces are all exactly the same. Two people will say these two don't match, those two aren't, and all. So we're trying to basically hit a target that's moving. So the best we really can do, your original question was, can we try to set this up for the printer so that we make a service that helps them through these things? Number one, first and foremost, we try to help them to understand people see colors in different ways. So we're going to try to help them normalize out the part that we can measure, and then try to help them through the other components that are more subjective. So things like metamerism and all the other things that paper comes into play. So first and foremost, I mentioned the operator kind of being the weakest link. What I mean by that is a lot of times they don't realize that paper has 90% to do with the way color represents itself when you look at it. How shiny the paper is, how dull the paper is it textured, is it watercolored, is it bright white, is it cream white, all those things. The same exact color of ink on 7 different substrates will look like 7 different colors of yellow ink. It's going to be different. So what our press does, and we put this into it specifically for this purpose, is it normalizes a lot of that out. And I brought a little ITA chart so everybody understands. It's literally just an ITA chart that we fingerprint the ink. We know what the ink looks like because it's our ink. We fingerprint the ink on that media, and we do this for every substrate in the press. The problem is that's not necessarily a certification. We talked about that before,
Right.
and G7 and all that stuff. Well, we knew that G7 wasn't necessarily a fair certification when we found out that there's a G7 for offset presses with translucent inks on certain medias, only 2 by the way, and people were coming to us from all the vendors saying, oh, my press, my printer, my whatever is G7 certified. And you're like, on what media? And they're
Right.
like, oh, all medias. Well, there's only 2 that are certified for that. They use specific ones. So instantly you know that's not true. Certain technologies translucent ink is a requirement of the certification. Certain technologies don't offer translucent or light passing inks, so those don't really fit. So you find out when ID Alliance is doing that, you're like, that's not really a fair certification. So as HP, we went back to ID Alliance and said, give us the offset version of this. Don't stick us in a room with the digital manufacturers. Let us go to the offset world. Translucent ink, certain papers, certain combinations and gray balances, etc. So that's probably part of that process. But on top of that, we do offer standard services. Our service team goes out, does all the G7 certification, etc. And we will do all the other products in your shop, the offset presses, the wide format devices, etc. At the end of the day, all we really care about is, can you get an accurate and a consistent, repeatable source? With what I showed here with the ITA chart, that provides a file. That file can be shared within your own shop with other presses of your own, or with other LinkedIn connections through our PritOS accounts to other sites that you authorize outsourcing to, or you can even have multiple sites that work off the same system and you all share the same profile. The obvious issue there, and here we go with all these issues of it, is trying to get paper that's consistent across a broad range of customers. So you get one paper in North America.
What about the fact that one day that they make paper, it's one color?
You got it, right? So we can hit it to the best of our ability, but at the end of the day, is the dress white and gold or is the dress blue and black? I mean, right?
I know it's potato, but not when there's a business model. You're selling services around it. There's a whole organization selling services around it, and it's, you know, is it the thing that we could never get to? You know, I get it. I mean, without you guys, it would be chaos. I completely understand
chaos
that.
with
And-
us.
well, it's controlled chaos at Little's, but let me. I need to let Canon answer this question.
You know, I come back to the education. For me personally, again, I think that's the number one thing that we do is work with our customers and educate them. And again, what services we provide, there's a tremendous number of services around color profiling and color management and G7. Our presses have built-in capabilities to calibrate to G7 and say, do we print to a certain color space? But real quickly, how many of you all have gotten a PDF that had missing fonts?
Oh, every printer raises their hand.
So kind of coming back to, where is color management connections made? So again, we can make the machine consistent, but what we sometimes can't do is feed it a consistent diet. And that's where, you know, we have to not only take a look at what do we do at the engine, but what do we do upstream? Can we use some type of pre-flighting capabilities? Because I think one of the things that we've done a really good job of is create a lot of powerful software tools and automate in this industry. I think what we've lost a little bit is the craftsmanship. You know, we don't have pressmen anymore for the most part, right? We have a lot of digital press operators. It used to be that, you know, designing and working for ad agencies used to be this real high pinnacle. Well, what do they focus on today? It's not just core print.
Right.
It's a lot of other things. We've lost the ability for designers to look at a file, build a PDF, pre-flight their own PDF and say, yes, I know this will print because I understand the printing process. So that's where you move away from the buttons you can click on the machine to educating and training customers on how to do this. One of the things that we do that's kind of interesting and unique is that in one of our classes that we do for our I-Series presses, we actually spend half a day bringing the operators and the pre-press people and designers together and teaching them both at the same time, this is how the press works. And oh, by the way, let's take one of your files. Oh, it's got a Pantone color in it. Well, how does the operator know that?
Right.
They don't.
Wait,
So,
they don't?
No, of course not. It's
Well,
in the
I'm not
PDF.
I don't run a press. I wouldn't have. Oh, I see what you say. How
They
would they
wouldn't
know?
see
Right.
it in the PDF. So how do we get a customer to communicate internally to help drive that end goal, right? To drive, to your point, the intent. What was the intent? The intent was to create or design something and communicate. Well, how do we get all of the parts to do that? And I think that's where we focus a lot of energy on color management as a thing, but we forget about color communication as a thing.
Interesting. I like color communication. I wish they would call it color communication, and because I could actually get into that, because then it's a two-way conversation.
Yes.
Management seems to say, like, you guys are saying this is the way to do it, and if you do it this way, it'll work. And I'm, as someone who's on the receiving end of printed pieces, no, it doesn't work like that. I'm not sure if you guys, this panel technically is over, but I'd like to, ask a couple, keep it going if you don't mind for a few more minutes, because it is, like I said, very topical. And there's, look, at 4:30 and this booth is, nicely packed.
Can I make a quick comment, Debbie?
Yes, you can, but then I got to
think
let Jamie the
it's-
printer ask a question.
It's really quick. So I think to your point about color management being kind of this ominous thing,
You're such a scientist. You're just not going to let it go.
No, I'm not.
There could be an idea of color.
so there's so the thing is,
You're going to
If-
get my hit
I know, I
alien
know.
today.
what if they started to make airplanes and people would give their opinions on how the seats should look like, or the wings or the tail? I know I wouldn't want to fly a plane anymore. So
But, but
Can I counter
engineers,
that?
yeah. But I was going to say engineers make that. It's not.
and that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
So there is one
Okay.
good way to make that specific plane, and I want them to keep making that plane always the same way, and I want them to maintain that plane the same way all the time, so I feel safe when I get on that plane.
Okay.
And with color management, it's very similar. There's one way to do it right, based on the file that comes in. The file says this is what it should be, so my downstream will be set up the way the file says it should be. If there's a disconnect with the operator, then or the customer, then sometimes we just got to be confident and say, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. If you want something else, you have to give me a better file, and I'll educate you on how to make that happen.
Okay.
I think that's
So if
That brings it
if
forward.
I may interject for 1 second,
of course.
a 4-star Michelin chef gets 4 stars from Michelin, and they serve me something, and I don't like it. Doesn't matter that if the Michelin guy did. It doesn't matter that somebody followed that recipe exactly as it was laid out in front of them. I don't like it. Therefore, the color management did not work. The recipe, nope, I'm sorry. You're going to say just because it's this on the spectrometer, it's that blue, that it worked.
Nope, just go to a different restaurant. You don't have to go there if you don't like it.
Oh, okay.
Right?
That's fair.
But I want that chef to always do it the same way, because I might like it. And if I want to
Okay.
go back there, I want them to do it exactly the same way.
Okay, I'm going to have to give you a little hanging in there, and all right, you loosened me up a little. Jamie the printer from Allegra Princeton, I said it right this time. He comes here to the show with Team Printiverse, and he sits here for 3 days and he listens to the panels. And because he's a printer, he helps me keep everybody up here honest to make sure that what you're saying is actually manifested in the real world. He's been asking people in his operation for questions, and other people that we know, and Jamie has a question about color management, or a statement, or a comment. Microphone.
Hello. There we go. So I've heard a couple things, consistent and accuracy, come out of everybody. When we deal with customers, we just had an issue this week where they sent us a file and they wanted it rich black,
Oops, a little feedback there. Thank you.
but didn't explain to us they wanted rich black. Their file was set up as just black. So when they got the proof, they looked at it and went, this is not what we wanted. I'm like, okay, let's reverse and let's talk about what you want. Here's how the file's set up. We sent it back to them. Now all the other pieces fit. Now they're happy. But when you're doing with brands, and this is one of them, we're doing it on flatbed, we're doing it on toner, we're doing it on HP Indigo, and then we're doing it on latex. They wanted them all to be very consistent. They wanted to be accurate. They wanted to be perfect. So what is more important, consistent or accuracy, especially when you're going over multiple, when you're in one shop and you have all of them and they have one on every piece of equipment?
And just so you know,
better?
in the Printiverse we play, you can only pick one. So Toby, your head might explode for this one.
But everybody said both of them.
Right.
And in the
You
same
can only
sentence, somebody
pick
said
one. Do you
consistent
want to
and
have
accurate.
consistent or accurate? Only one, Toby.
Okay, I pick consistency. And the reason why I pick consistency is because if my customer pays me today for that job, then it's probably very likely that they're going to pay me again for that same job 2-3 weeks later. So my vote's for consistency.
Even if your little spectrometer is saying that it's not the right color, Toby?
Oh, stop it. Yes, even that.
Okay, so now I converted you a little. No? Okay. Tim?
Yeah, so I'll say consistency as well. I'll give a little anecdote about it. You're an Olympian coach, you're teaching your archers, you're trying to pick one out of thousands, and you get two guys at the very end of it. One guy hits the dead center ring 5 times out of 10. The other 5, who knows where they went. 2 missed the target, 3 hit the outer ring. They're not really that high, but he dead centered 5 of them. The other guy that's shooting, he hits 10 arrows in a tight little Robin Hood style at the top left of the target, nowhere near the center ring. I'd rather have that guy because I can at least tell him aim lower right and you'll probably hit the center. I can control what his results are by telling him where to aim at the beginning. Consistency works much better.
That was a very good analogy.
Yeah, absolutely consistency. To the point, if you're consistent, you can then begin to tune for where those differences are or make a logical change. Again, coming as somebody who used to run offset presses, if I can make it what I made it yesterday and I can make it that tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, I still have a job. So I'm happy about that. Accuracy is this more nebulous thing because what's accurate? It's kind of like how spicy is too spicy.
Wait,
we can.
Is the color management guy actually saying what's accurate now? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
Take a look at the specifications that we use for print, right? So there's different specifications, your paper white, your primaries, your maximum delta E, and those are all really good. But what if they're not good enough for me? What if I want something less? What if I come to you and say, hey, I want 0 delta E on everything that you print for me? Is that a reasonable aim for accuracy? You tell me. So yeah, for me it's consistency because at least that gives me something to drive. If I say, well, it has to be accurate, well, there's so many variables to that accuracy that you're really just going to be, we used to call it chasing a bad proof.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. This was actually one of my favorite panels, to tell you the truth. I didn't even ask any of the questions that I had written down because after our pre-conversation already had got me riled up a bit. But thank you so much. If you want to learn more about the panelists, you pick up our beautiful program, and you can find out about Canon, HP, and Ricoh, and their booth number, their website, a little blurb about them is here. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody who stayed in the booth. With the show's about to close, and there's a bunch of people here. That's pretty awesome. And we're going to do a quick Printerverse recap with my friend David from TSA. Yes, the TSA. He's a printer who's also walking the print shop. But if you're ever on, you have your problem at the airport and you tweet TSA, this gentleman and his team are the ones who handle it. He's a good guy to know. All right, so we'll be back in literally 2 seconds. We're just going to clear the stage and bring him up. Thank you.